This episode of We Chose Play was made possible with the generous financial support of Affect Autism's members and of the International Council on Development and Learning, ICDL.com. You're listening to the We Chose Play podcast from Affect Autism, where Affect is the #1 tool we use in supporting development through playful interactions. Stumbling Blocks in Floortime at FEDC 5, Inspiring the Expression of Ideas and Feelings. Episode 18. This episode we continue with our series on stumbling blocks that parents come across when trying to play with their children and how to move past them. We will focus on functional emotional developmental capacity FEDC 5, which is using symbols and creating emotional ideas. Other developmental approaches and even some behavioral interventions are successful at supporting children with developmental differences to reach functional emotional developmental capacity or FEDC 3, but DIR Floortime can support children to move beyond this capacity into the more complex capacities of relating, communicating, and thinking. Below is not meant to be a comprehensive list, but hopefully you will find some helpful suggestions here. Disclaimer: these are general suggestions and guidelines. Context is important and can impact how to handle a stumbling block. Children can also exhibit certain behaviors at home or with you that differ from those at school or in other settings with others. Please contact a professional for specific recommendations for your own child. At Functional Emotional Developmental Capacity 5, child is regulated, engaging, and having purposeful emotional interactions in a continuous flow with social problem solving, but is not yet creating ideas. FEDC 5 is the next capacity that follows from the child who is regulated at FEDC 1, engaged at FEDC 2, communicating with you in a back and forth fashion that involves gestures, glances, emotional signaling, body language, or words at FEDC 3, and is able to sustain complex circles of communication and problem solve with you at FEDC 4. This next capacity, FEDC 5, is about symbol formation, imaginary play, and creating emotional ideas. At this capacity, the child's creativity emerges as they use language to express ideas. The child begins to show their imagination by engaging in pretend play and interacts with caregivers and peers in pretend play because they understand symbols. And very important to this capacity is connecting emotions to the ideas. The child will have the ability to replicate real life through play. Child does not show emotional themes in pretend play. Many children on the autism spectrum can reach the higher capacities or at least have islands of them, but sometimes we see flat emotion. The goal will be to broaden the emotional themes in the child's interactions and play. Practicing expanding this emotional range prepares children for emotional thinking in FEDC 6. Tips: practice positive emotions by reenacting fun celebrations such as birthdays or family outings that the child has enjoyed. Practice negative emotions such as anger in an acceptable way that makes the child feel safe, such as labeling when something in play makes you angry. Dr. Andrea Davis's co-authored book gives a great example. If you are playing with characters and your child takes yours from you, you can exclaim, "No, no, no! Angry, angry, angry!" So the child sees you are comfortable with your anger, which gives the child permission to be comfortable with their anger as well. Practice taking turns being the one who sets the limits in play, such as putting bad guys in jail, making dolls go to bed early, and so on. Developmental psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld says that children must feel safe to be able to practice real life in play without consequences. That is, there is no right or wrong in play, and you want to give your child the freedom to play out any emotions without judgment. The more they can practice negative emotions in play and experiment with pushing the limits of what is acceptable, the less likely they will struggle with these emotions and boundaries in real life. Dr. Andrea Davis's co-authored book also suggests exploring the following additional themes in play with your child: positive, nurturance and dependence, curiosity, power and assertiveness, desire, pride and competence, love, admiration, and adoration. Negative, fears and anxieties, disgust, sadness, envy, shame and embarrassment, rejection and loneliness, and confusion. Child does not engage in pretend play. If your child is having long chains of emotional signaling while interacting with you and able to socially problem solve with you, but doesn't seem to have their own ideas or is not engaging in imaginary play yet, there are things you can do to facilitate this. Probably the best thing you can do is fill in the holes in functional emotional developmental capacity 4. Dr. Gordon Neufeld speaks so eloquently about development and how it is a process of nature that cannot be taught or learned. That is, all we can do is provide the necessary conditions and the right environment, and development will spontaneously happen. It is really what we've seen unfold with our own son. By continuing to work on regulation, engagement, and robust emotional interactions with our son, we are seeing capacities in FEDC 4 and 5 begin to appear. Tips. Continue to work on making the earlier capacities more robust by co-regulating with your child whenever they are overly excited, happy, or sad and in a meltdown, fostering robust engagement with your child, and working on robust emotional signaling with your child. Continue to practice problem solving with your child at FEDC 4 by using wonderment and prolonging each interaction with your child to get robust long chains of back and forth emotional signaling. Introduce one small element of imagination once you are at FEDC 4 with your child, such as reenacting in your play something you did outside the house as a family. For example, if you usually play trains at home but went to the beach for the day, you can bring in some sand or something to represent sand beside the train and a beach ball or a pail and a shovel, and just nonchalantly mention that the passengers are going to the beach today, pointing to the beach, saying, "There's the beach." Play with your child daily using toy characters and whole body role playing by interacting, talking, and expressing a lot of different forms of emotion as your character. Dramatize, role play, and be animated in a voice different from your own for each character you impersonate, inviting the child to participate in the drama. Dr. Andrea Davis's co-authored book gives the example of a child playing with a train. You can playfully say in character, "Hey, I want to ride," or you can talk as if you are the train carrying cargo. Child is struggling with assertiveness and/or aggression in pretend play. Many autistic children have anxieties related to sensory or other issues. Resulting insecurities can make it difficult for children to be assertive, and instead they can act out aggressively. We need to keep in mind that their aggression is an emotional impulse or a defensive reaction to being misunderstood, and be understanding rather than treating it as a problem behavior. We can be supportive and help them find a way to let out that frustration. Tips. Practice aggressive expression in play, as mentioned above, to help children get used to coming up with ways to express themselves more constructively when they are frustrated. Expand a child's emotional range through practice in play by modeling different emotions in different scenarios. Be a character in your own child's drama and express yourself positively and negatively to prompt a reaction from your child, and then together you can solve how to work through the drama. Dr. Greenspan has also suggested that you introduce change to a child who maintains rigid play and routine very gently by asking permission to avoid frustration that leads to their aggression. This might be saying, "I was thinking of doing blank this way instead. What do you think?" Or, "How would you feel if I liked something different?" Another technique is approaching slowly and saying in a flirtatious, quiet voice, slowly and deliberately, "I'm coming to get that toy." This introduces your child to what you will do that is not the way they want it to be, rather than you just taking the toy and them getting frustrated. Create different conflicts in your dramas, which challenges your child to figure out a solution. Dr. Stanley Greenspan always said that we want to set up every conflict so the child wins 70 to 80% of the time in order to build up their confidence. If your child feels overwhelmed by conflicts you present, always slow things down, breaking it into smaller steps so they can always feel success to build their confidence in solving problems without resorting to aggression. Also, be more soothing and gentle so they are not overloaded. Example. Our son loves to throw. One time he threw a ball up high and it got stuck. He was so motivated to get the ball down that he was able to stay in the interaction and problem solve in getting the ball down, but he didn't know how. We pretended we didn't know what to do, playing clueless, and first reached up high, but we were way too short. We said, I need to get up high. If he doesn't make a suggestion, we eventually look at the chair to stand on. If he still doesn't catch on, we keep him in the interaction by pointing to the chair and saying, there's a chair, dragging out the interaction as long as possible before losing his attention. Eventually, we get a chair to stand on, then have to find a pole or stick to hold on the chair to reach the ball and poke it down. But this process can take 20 or more minutes, which makes for a nice long problem-solving interaction at FEDC 4 of shared problem solving, which will prompt our son to come up with his own ideas next time he faces another challenge, instead of giving up and moving on to a new activity. Child has emerging pretend play, but it remains very concrete. Our children can get stuck playing with very concrete ideas in play. We would like to facilitate richer, more creative ideas to help prepare them for higher levels of thinking at FEDC 6 and higher. We can do this by adding new elements into our children's play and by helping them understand a beginning, middle, and end to dramas that we create together. We want to entice them to be more creative and have more complex ideas, which will help them be more flexible going forward, such as when they come across problems to solve. Tips. Again, Dr. Andrea Davis's co-authored book gives us some great suggestions for moving concrete play towards more flexible creative play in our children. You can elaborate in dramas by following your child's lead, such as, "Oh, I see. Okay, we're in a rocket ship. So should I call you Captain Blank?" the child's name. You can complicate the drama by adding in a new element, such as, "Here we go to the moon again. We're in our rocket ship. Uh-oh, we have run out of gas. You can delineate or represent a beginning, middle, and end to a drama, such as, "So first the spaceship landed on the moon, and then the aliens came. What's going to happen at the end?" Again, we can use playful obstruction to playfully and gently insert mishaps into our dramas. This will frustrate our child just a bit in order to help them think of ways to get around the challenge that's being presented to them. Take on dual roles in playing with your child to help them out of black and white thinking, such as this example. The child says it's time for bed to their stuffed animal puppy. You will be the dog saying in a doggy voice, "No, I don't want to go to bed." Then you can go back to your own voice and whisper to the child, "Puppy doesn't want to sleep yet. He's going to be so tired. What should we do?" Vary the form of how you play to include other symbolic representations to enrich the form of symbolic play. Rather than just enacting toy, puppet, or stuffed animal characters, draw characters, build structures or houses out of blocks, pretend that the blocks are cars or trains, etc., and hypothesize with older children about things being different. What if he can't take his car to work? How will he get there? Hopefully you found this episode supportive in promoting FEDC 5 in your child's development and the earlier capacities that lead up to this developmental capacity. We will continue with stumbling blocks at FEDC 6, but first, next time, Dr. Andrea Davis of the Greenhouse Therapy Center in Pasadena, California will be our guest, who is the co-author of a wonderful User's Guide to the DIR Model. We will be discussing how to support parents and therapists in applying DIR Floortime in their interactions with children and teens. Dr. Davis's book provides accessible tips that parents and therapists can use to set achievable goals with children, one step at a time. Be sure to tune in. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone, like and subscribe, sign up for the newsletter at affectautism.com, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. Until next time, here's to choosing play and experiencing joy every day.